Hey.
Hey, I was just enraptured. I want to see that again.
I know, right? It's that was done by the great NerdChronic, of course. Those were
I'm familiar.
Awesome logos. I was like, make it like Loki, and he did. So good job. Thanks, NerdChronic.
Again, always towing that perfect line between homage and not being derivative. Like that is like. I could pick up on the Loki vibes now that you're mentioning it, but I wasn't thinking of Loki, and that's a testament to how it was done.
I was watching Fear Street this last weekend, like going through all the Fear Street movies, since I guess they count as films, even though they're like a trilogy of.
I haven't seen parts 2 and 3 yet, but I will very soon.
Okay, I'm surprised. I'm not the hugest fan. I wasn't a huge fan of the Fear Street series as a kid. I was a Goosebumps gal, but the show. I mean, I know people love it, so I'm not gonna like touch on that, but like. I thought it was like a little derivative. Like it was very clear like what they were aiming for and like what they were like trying to do an homage to, but like it didn't feel like Ryan Murphy camp. It just felt like straight up like we're just gonna pretend like you maybe haven't seen these movies. But we'll see. Maybe
I can see what you mean. I mean, I'm gonna hold my final assessment until I've seen parts 2 and 3, but I picked up on that initial buzz. That's what got me to watch chapter 1. I thought it was fun. But ultimately, it played to me like a feature-length American Horror Story episode.
Right.
But that was a bit more focused. I'll give it that. It was a bit more concise, has a focused mythology and history to it. So, but yeah, I wasn't hardcore about Fear Street. I was into Goosebumps as well. But if we're doing R-rated Fear Street, R-rated Goosebumps, please. Let's make it
R-rated Goosebumps. Well, wasn't that always the deal? There was Goosebumps, then there was like Fear Street for like a little bit older, and then he did like these books for adults that I only remember because the first one started out with like an author getting a blowjob from his assistant, and that's just like how you knew you weren't in Fear Street territory anymore. This was like for adults.
R.L. Stine was ready to let that out, I guess.
He was ready to let out and let this mingle. Guys, hey everybody in the comments. Welcome to the very first inaugural episode of Why Are We Like This? I'm VideoDrew.
Why are we?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just thinking out loud. I'm excited to be here, Drew.
This is Adam Collins to my right. Adam, you just finished an AMA, which stands for.
Well, technically, it's going through tomorrow, but I think the initial wave is pretty much cooked. But if anyone wants to hop onto Reddit tomorrow and ask me more questions, I'm technically on the clock through the end of tomorrow. So,
what were some of your favorite questions that you got today?
There were a lot of good ones in there. A lot of questions about horror, not just what your favorite horror movies are, but specifically comparing horror movies, directors, things like that. That made me happy.
Okay.
And a lot of people just kept asking, if you could play anybody, who would you play? If you could play anywhere in the world, where would it be? How are you going to handle your first studio match? Stuff like that. So, I mean, that stuff is standard, but I still enjoyed answering it. And I don't know. Just go read it for yourself, folks. I don't want to spoil the surprise. Go check it out.
Read it yourself. Go read it yourself. We're not going to do the work for you. This is not that show. To answer Joe Canada's, with the real full name there, question, you haven't missed anything, bud. We just kind of dived right into it. This show, though, is called Why Are We Like This? It's an idea that Adam and I sort of came up with after doing Live in the Dark together and then a Cinema Bias episode and just finding out, as one might assume when you first, see us in Schmoedown, that we have a ton in common, that we actually, our interests kind of align in a lot of ways, and that we have, we share very similar tastes and we find the same kind of things funny. And yeah, we're basically the same person. That's what people say all the time. I've heard that a million times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, kinship bears itself out over time, and I'm glad we finally got the chance to break the ice on other shows. I did 2 VideoChronic quizzes this week. It was epic.
Yes.
Won one of them.
Yes.
Barely lost the second. I'm coming back. I'm coming for you, Montano.
Literally, we keep talking all week long. Everyone just keeps bringing up the light in your eyes when we said the Congo quiz was happening. And then, like, Eric has this little impression where he's like, this is me doing Adam when he heard the Congo quiz was happening. Did you say Congo?
Well,
no, it's funny.
Well, Congo, I have a very long history with that movie. And the short version is I watched it when I was young. And then when I went to college, Freshman year of college, you're breaking the ice with a bunch of people all at once. And I found my people pretty quick. But one of our bonding experiences was sharing movies with each other. Some bad, some good, some in the middle, like Congo. And I think calling Congo a bad movie is an oversimplification. I think it's got a lot going for it. It's just not Jurassic Park. So, but I think it's a very watchable, entertaining movie. And I got all my friends to watch Congo in college, and it just became this talking point, this obsession, and this inside joke all through senior year. So when you mentioned Congo, I was like, well, if my friends from college ever see this video, and some of them I have already, I think, I gotta do Congo. I can't shy away from that.
You can't avoid Congo. I mean, that was sort of me in the movie Cube in college. I have a poster of Cube on my wall. It's like not a bad movie by any means, but I think like when I tell people it's my favorite, they think I'm being like ironic, and I'm like, no, it's literally like one of my favorite films. I think it's so smart. I've edited the Wikipedia page about it. There's like a lot of math. Like we use most of their budget money that was like subsidized by the French Canadian government to like into a mathematician that would make sure the prime coordinates worked out. I love it. But that sort of gets to what this show is going to be about. Why are we like this? Pretty self-explanatory. It's a show about like the pop culture that made us who we are today. I mean, I think Adam and I are we're very similar, and we have I think a similar sensibility, which might not be the same as the most mainstream typical Joe Schmoedown. We kind of have a offbeat sort of taste. Yours of course is a lot wider than mine, but we both kind of share this sort of unconventional taste and stuff. And why did that happen? How did we become like this?
Exactly. That's what we need to get to. And we wanted to do something that was existential but zany.
Yeah. And also that you could donate to. So guys, Streamlabs is open tonight. See how subtle that was? Streamlabs.com/VideoDrew. You can, send in a couple bucks. They'll have like a little voice come down, and there'll be little clouds, and it'll be super cute. But Adam, I'm going to actually start with you by asking, you said something interesting on the Congo quiz that caught my ear, which was that you would tell kids on the playground, I'm not sure exactly what age, you would tell kids on the playground that you had 3 favorite movies growing up. What were they?
Now, this was, you gotta contextualize this. This is when I was about 9-10 years old, right around, that was the mid-90s. I'm not afraid to give that away. What happened was 95 to 96 was a big year for me, because a lot of great movies came out in the mid-90s. And that was the age where I was starting to get to watch a lot more PG-13 movies, a handful of R-rated movies, but a lot of PG-13, and going to theater for PG-13. So I saw Congo, Mortal Kombat, and Twister in theaters, and I became obsessed with them, had them on VHS, watched them repeatedly, and I was very proud to tell people, oftentimes unsolicited, my 3 favorite movies are Congo, Mortal Kombat, and Twister. And people would often reply with, thank you.
Thank you.
But my friends and I, we would talk about it all the time. And Congo was always the outlier. Mortal Kombat and Twister were easy sells on the playground. Congo, you had to really kind of explain what was going on. It's like, they're like, oh, is it like King Kong? It's like, no.
No. We would have actually gotten along, because I would have been like, oh, Tim Curry, right? Like Tim Curry?
2 of my favorite people on the impetus of my new favorite YouTube show. I love you both, Bangarang.
Thank you so much, Amber.
Oh,
That's
wow.
a nice
Thank
donation.
you, Amber.
Oh, you guys
Thank you
should be
very
actually.
much.
Thank you so much. I think you guys should be able. You were able to hear that, right, Adam? Like that came out clear. Yeah, I had the audio output muted, so that's why before it's been hard to hear. Anyway, I was the hugest Tim Curry nerd growing up. Like I was what I guess you'd call today a stan. I was a Tim Curry stan.
Oh yeah.
My parents let me watch Rocky Horror Picture Show way, way, way too early. But then also I watched the It miniseries and Clue. And
I'm obsessed with the It miniseries. Obsessed.
So it's so good.
We'll have to do that on a future episode.
Yeah, we do. We totally need to talk about that. Well, we're going to get to Stephen King today. So hopefully we're going to get to some of that today. But I watched, so it went Rocky Horror Picture Show, then it went Clue, then it went It. So I thought Tim Curry was like a weird clown all the time, and that sometimes like dressed up like in man clothes. Like I just thought he dressed like a weird white-faced clown most of the time. And then Fern Gully came out, and I think that's when it clicked that he was like an actor and not just like a weird performance artist. And so I was obsessed. I remember going to Disneyland or Disney World, and they had this ride. I forget what it was called, Space Adventure or something, where there was an intro little animatronic thing that would go around. and there was Skippy, who was an alien, and then like a robot thing. And I remember being in line and being like, "Yo, Dad, that's Tim Curry." Like, I was like, "I'm pretty sure that's Tim Curry's voice." My dad was like, "No, it's not." And I was like, "No, it is. It absolutely is." We went home, like looked it up in a catalog. I don't know how we found things out those days, but it turned out
Called a 900 number.
We called a 900 number. We stopped one of the people in Disney's pavilion and asked them, "Is that Tim Curry?" And they were like, "Go away, small child."
Tim Curry, I mean, all of us love him when we reach a certain age if we're paying attention. Mm-hmm. But discovering him at an early age is a special treat because it was definitely how I discovered him. But I didn't know what Tim Curry really looked like until a few years after I'd seen it. I didn't connect the dots until like I started paying attention to credits when I was like, you know, like later elementary school, early middle school. And that was like, I was watching Home Alone 2 and I was like,
yes.
I was like, that's Pennywise?
That's Pennywise.
Holy shit. And I saw Clue at a very young age and fell in love with it. And I knew it was him by then. I was really excited to see him in that kind of role. And I've been obsessed with him ever since. And Congo, his performance in Congo, it becomes superfluous like halfway through the film.
Yes.
But functionally it's superfluous, but his presence isn't, and it's so great.
What was so great about seeing Congo is I always assumed, because it was like it was the one rare Tim Curry movie I'd missed because I assumed I had no interest. I kind of remember this movie coming out maybe a little bit before that one, Ghost Lions with Val Kilmer, who I also had a big thing for, and it just felt like the same kind of thing, like the nature attacks, and I wasn't really into disaster stuff. I actually had a really
the Ghost in the Darkness?
Ghost in the Darkness, that's what it is. It was about lions.
The movie's so much fun.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the Island of Dr. Monroe, another Val Kilmer one that I missed growing up. Although that one's so sweet. Moreau, right?
Moreau, but yeah, like that's a John Frankenheimer joint. It's fascinating to go back and watch. I owe that one a rewatch. It's been a while, and I would love to see Brando get his own slice at some point because I want the Moreau deep cuts.
Now I'm not sure if you've seen the movie Old yet, that new M. Night Shyamalan movie.
I did.
Okay, I've not seen it yet, but I did hear that there is a Schmoedown style question that is never answered throughout the film, which is, what is the name of the movie that stars Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando?
Yeah.
And like, that's a stumper. Didn't know it.
I know it, but
yeah. Were you watching the movie and you were like, I know this one?
Well, yeah, but it's because like I haven't seen the movie though. I just knew what it was. I still want to see the movie. I guess I shouldn't give it away as an answer right now.
No, I had to Google it, and then by Googling it, I found out that Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando actually had mad respect for each other. So much so that when he died, Jack Nicholson bulldozed his house down, Marlon Brando's house. He bulldozed his house down, just leveled it flat because he felt like Brando's kids didn't respect their dad and his things enough. So he was the next door neighbor, and he just ran over everything in the house, which is crazy.
I'd like to hire Jack Nicholson to bulldoze my past as well.
I'm going to go like double check and make sure this wasn't like an Ambien dream I had, but I'm pretty sure the answer is Marlon Brando had his house bulldozed down by Jack Nicholson. Now,
and
go ahead.
I just have to address Joe Canada's comment briefly. You are correct. I found an apartment in the middle of upstate New Hampshire that is a time capsule, and that's why I picked it. It's wood paneling top to bottom. It's a steal in terms of rent. I won't say the amount, but it's a steal. And it's a quiet little corner of the mountains where I can like rest and rejuvenate because I'm constantly on the road. But just to give people a little insight, if you see wood paneling, that's my real home. If I'm anywhere else, I am traveling for work. So I've done not countless. I've done a finite number of matches, obviously, but I've done several matches in Airbnbs and hotels and stuff like that. So
I remember your first match I remember seeing digitally. You look like you were in a log shed. Is that your log shed, or were you doing that from
It was a log shed where I was living at the time that was on the property, and it was just a great place to do promos. And when I started out, I just wanted to less was more when I hit the scene. I just wanted to focus on winning, and then character stuff was secondary. This season I put much more effort into character stuff, but the shed was part of like get them talking about something, make yourself seem a little strange.
Yeah, who's this guy? What's his shit about? Why does he have one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I Googled it. It turns out Jack Nicholson, it's one of the things when you Google Jack Nicholson, Marlon Brando, it says, why did Jack Nicholson demolish Marlon Brando's house? And the answer is, well, the answer apparently is he was advised there was a presence of house mold, mold in the house, but then also he didn't like the kids. So, God bless him.
Those damn little Brandos. I really do want to see that movie. And anyone who hasn't seen Old, I'm not going to guarantee you'll like it. I didn't necessarily like it, but everyone should see it.
It's only theaters? Is it only?
It
theaters?
is. If you, I'm not saying everyone should rush out and see it in theaters, but at some point, everyone should see it once because it is a movie you will talk about.
I like Shyamalan. I thought I was really vibing for the Shaman-led-sance or whatever you want to call it. I was. We're
all hoping that's going to happen someday.
Because you know what, The Visit was a really good movie. That might be one of my favorite M. Night Shyamalan. You know what? Just forget it. It's
Shyamalama Ding Dong. I know.
Shyamalan Ding Dong, but also it's one of my favorite found footage films. Like I think one of the best uses of found footage is The Visit with Catherine Hahn and I forget who plays the two grandparents, but they're so good and they're so creepy.
The Visit was a pleasant surprise, and it's because he wasn't going too high concept with that, and that was nice. And I think Split overall is decent.
Split's great.
Yeah, like I think it got a disproportionate amount of praise at the time because it was his best movie in a while. And I've cooled off on it a bit, but like when Glass came out, I'm like, this ain't Split.
Yeah, no, Glass was not Split. No. I watched Lady in the Water for the first time recently.
Oh, God.
And NerdChronic made a good point, which is it's got a Twin Peaks vibe to it. It definitely feels like he's trying to do Twin Peaks.
He's trying to do everything in that movie. Yeah. That movie doesn't bore me at all. It's fascinating, but I have to gear myself up for it if I rewatch it because it's not something I watch for pleasure. It's something I watch because I just want to understand what motivated him to make the movie. And I get it was for his kids, but it's more than that. It got so deep and self-referential and
Bob Balahan in that where he's just like this is the part where my character would die because he would this is the part where my character would live to make like a funny quip at the end and it's like nah you dead.
And that stilted weird dialogue has become more prevalent in his later career and Old has that in spades. Just like that's all. I won't talk about plot at all because people are still seeing it, but I will say it's got a lot of Shyamalanisms that are just fascinatingly bad, but also great conversation starters. So go see Old, talk about it with your friends. You're gonna have fun regardless.
5-point question. Do you remember like any of the made up terms from Lady in the Water? Like I feel like I knew them at one point. It's like Grogu. No, that's the name for the thing from the Mandalorian. But it's something like that. It's like these made up terms for like the chick and the thing that's hunting her and the eagle gods that come down.
Oh God, I don't remember like all the terms. No,
Also, interestingly, I think it's like the one. It's the one where he put himself as the biggest part, and he like gave himself a part as like the writer savior who was going to like save the world. And like I don't know, that seems like a weird thing that your kids probably didn't ask for in their bedtime story.
I don't think so. I did. Have to jog my memory. Scrunts is one.
Scrunts.
Word. Yeah. Scrunts. Yeah. Those are like the bad things.
I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying because you said 1996 was the big year for you in movies. Was that the Congo year? No.
Yeah. 95 was when Congo came out and Mortal Kombat, but Twister was 96.
So I think my big year was the Jurassic Park year.
93.
Yeah, 93 because I saw that movie 12 times in the movie theater.
Oh wow.
That movie had such an impression on me, which is weird because I really don't like disaster stuff. Like I felt very traumatized as a kid by like natural disasters, of which we didn't have that many in Delaware. But like I was in one, and I just got horribly traumatized. But maybe Jurassic Park.
State, you can get hit by a hurricane anytime.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it's a long story. Me and my dad got into it on the dark.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually not that long. I was at a three-ring circus, like a big top circus in the middle of a field, and got separated from my parents.
God!
And there was a huge hurricane, basically, that came out of nowhere and started hitting the lightning, started hitting the top of the tent pole, and like sizzling. And I couldn't find my parents, and everyone was like running and screaming. And after that, like I was scared of droughts. of hurricanes, of famine, like everything just became a huge thing for me. But I think Jurassic Park was a little bit before that, because I remember watching it and just finding it so romantic in a weird way. I thought like Dr. Ian Malcolm was the coolest guy that ever lived, and I wanted to marry him when I grew up. And
that
like,
was a sexual awakening for people across all genders, even if they didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah, they were like, "Who's this nerd that I'm in love with?" I remember being in a swim meet and doing like the breaststroke or something, and realizing like partway through the relay that Dr. Ian Malcolm wasn't like a real guy. Like I realized this as like it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, "Oh, he's not real." Like Jeff Goldblum is real. That's why I know the name Jeff Goldblum. But like I could never meet Dr. Ian Malcolm. He's like a fictional character. And I just dead stopped in the middle of the pool, in the middle of a relay. Like I was passing a baton to somebody, just stopped, just got out of the pool and started like weeping uncontrollably. It was the most devastating moment of my young life, besides the Big Top Circus thing, was probably realizing that I could not actually meet and marry Dr. Ian Malcolm. I mean, that's the kind of like delusional thinking I was working under as like a 9-year-old.
I don't know if delusional is the right word, just wishful. You know, like I think a lot of I mean that's akin to I think a lot of kids realizing their dog or cat's gonna die for the first time. You know, it's tough, but then the silver lining is one day you ended up seeing, I assume you saw The Fly later after Jurassic Park, and Seth Brundle's a whole other level of Jeff Goldblum excitement. So there's so much to discover in his filmography that it makes up for him not being a real person.
I mean, my parents had shown me other Jeff Goldblum things. I guess I just thought, and again, I'm trying to go back to kid way of thinking, but I guess I thought that like Dr. E. Malcolm was like one of him. Like there was, not that there was multiple of him, but like maybe it was Dr. E. Malcolm who was going to movie to movie. Because I was also a huge Earth Girls were Easy fan, or Earth Girl Are Easy. Huge fan of that. The Downtown Julie Brown soundtrack, Gina Davis.
And Jeff Goldblum's like, if I remember correctly, he's got some occasional eyeliner in that too.
Oh God, he
just adds to it. Yeah.
And it's Jim Curry and Damon Wayans is the other one. Damon Wayans is the other two aliens.
And Jim Curry. Yeah, so like it was like it had that in living color energy. You know, because of those two collaborating on in a big screen movie. But yeah, Earth Girls Are Easy is pretty cool. Everyone should see that movie. It's so colorful. It's so
colorful. The music is great. I used to just listen to this soundtrack where it's like, I was like, why is her best friend getting so many songs in the middle of this otherwise not musical movie? But it's fantastic. And they're all, it's very colorful. It's very like Tim Burton quiche, I would say. Like it's got that Tim Burton kitsch. I don't know why I said quiche. It's not food. It's like got that Tim Burton kitsch going on where the colors all look like 1950s space alien things. Rob saying he saw Earth Girls Are Easy in theaters. Wow, and someone else is saying that they saw The Fly. Oh, same guy. Saw The Fly before Jurassic Park. You're right. You're older than us, Rob. Stardew saying Dante's Peak and Volcano is fun. I remember seeing Deep Impact in theaters. I don't think I saw the other one. What's it? I've still never seen Armageddon. I've never seen Armageddon.
Armageddon. So, like, and we're going to talk about our own natural disaster double feature in a little bit.
But, yeah, we are. Yes, we are.
Plug. But Volcano, Dante's Peak, and Deep Impact Armageddon are two of those late 90s doubles that are really interesting. But of those four, Armageddon is by far the weakest. Whenever I go back to, like, I went back and watched Armageddon a year and a half ago, and I was angry at the end. I was really frustrated with the way the characters were written, how long it is, how it does not hold up. And then Deep Impact, by comparison, is elegantly brief. You know, it makes its point. The characters are likable. It's not bad.
It's almost Sorkin-esque. Because Deep Impact is always on the TV when I go to NerdChronic's house. For some reason, it's always on the TV, and I'm always like struck because we're always hitting the same part with the briefing and like the him like having to find. I don't know. It always seems like it's the same two scenes, and a lot of it doesn't have to do with comments. It's all like press rooms and the spreading information and sort of how information is disseminated, and it's a very interesting movie.
Well, not to get off track, but one question I got in the AMA that I appreciated was, which celebrity you think should play in the Schmoedown? And I said, I think Elijah Wood would crush it. That's just a hunch.
He'd be so good. I always thought Mary Lou Henner would be great at it, but that's only because she has that weird memory issue where like her brain works differently than everyone else's, and she
has photographic memory.
It's like different than photographic memory, because photographic memory you can see something and memorize it. Let's see what we got here.
Sending some love to 2 awesome people on the occasion of their first show.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Adelia. It sounds like we're having our bar mitzvah on the occasion of our first show. I also see Galagos in the comments saying, buy the Criterion DVD of Armageddon, right, because we need a longer version of this. For the brutally honest commentary. I have heard this. I have heard the Armageddon commentary is amazing, specifically Ben Affleck just trashing Michael Bay throughout. I think I've just recently heard like a clip out of it of Ben Affleck being like, why is this happening? Like, this is so... Oh yeah, in it, Ben Affleck goes, I asked Michael, why not just teach astronauts how to drill instead of teaching guys who know how to drill how to be in space? Wouldn't it just be easier to teach the astronauts how to like do our job? And he was just like, shut up. So I never brought it up again. I just thought that was like an amazing little out commentary.
I hate that movie because I can never like I have a kid who likes animal crackers, and every time I have animal crackers anywhere near me, I think it's goddamn Ben Affleck in the 90s. And it's not like there are worse things to think about, I guess, but it's just that scene is so dumb. And
I have no idea the scene you're talking about because, again, I have not seen Armageddon.
Your audience does.
Okay.
And someday you'll watch Armageddon and you'll be like, this movie sucks. And this particular scene is pretty dumb. But in fairness, my first slow dance ever was in the 6th grade to Don't Want to Miss a Thing. And that's pretty memorable.
See, nothing about that as a child. Like, I had very specific tastes. Like, and nothing about Ben Affleck meets Bruce Willis, meets Michael Bay, meets like the Aerosmith guy, meets the Aerosmith guy's daughter. None of that appealed to me. Like, you couldn't probably pay me to go to the movie theater like to see that film. But I did. Speaking of, I did see Twister in theaters, and I think by that point I had an irrational fear already of Storm. So I remember seeing this and it being like a very aggressive film for me. I loved Paxton. I specifically loved in Twister, like the side characters. Like I liked all the guys that he was like going around with. There was this like one kind of bug-eyed dude who I liked a lot, who I would frequently catch in other movies. I loved the Princess Bride. I loved Carrie Elways in it. I thought that dynamic was really good. And I really like, it's funny to have a movie where like the main love tension is this woman showing up and being like, here's the divorce papers I needed to give you in person. And then he's like, want to catch tornadoes? And she's like, oh, you. And then they do. And that's like the rest of the movie. And then at the end, I think she tears up the divorce papers. And I remember thinking, is that how they get you? Is that like, if I ever go and have to physically hand somebody divorce papers as their ex, am I going to have to like not get roped into one of their crazy schemes, or else I'm going to get trapped back into a marriage? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love how much of that plot hinges on the divorce papers and how those divorce papers, despite trucks and things like getting blown to smithereens, everyone like she's got the divorce papers, and then like when they get to the drive-in scene, she vindictively like signs all of them because she's mad at Bill Paxton for calling her out on her shit. When the second or third Dorothy machine, or the second Dorothy machine crashes and burns.
Wait, is Dorothy Machine in this movie, or is Dorothy Machine the one from...
No, Dorothy is Twister. Dorothy is Twister because Warner Brothers produced Twister, and they could do Wizard of Oz references.
Gotcha.
And all that. We'll get to the other one soon. Yes. Are you talking about Sean Whalen for the Big Eye people?
Yeah, he looks like the guy from...
I'm excited for this new project.
Hell yeah.
To catch the replay of this first one, though. Happy first episode, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
wow,
AJ.
we have so much support. Hell yeah. That's just
appreciate
NerdChronic. Yeah, we appreciate it. I'm trying to find an image for this movie we're about to talk about, but even that's kind of hard to do.
You're hard pressed. They're all heavily pixelated. It's not like the fact that it's available on Amazon to own, but not to rent. That's a surprise.
Well, okay, so you know what? Let's get to it, because we've talked a little bit about Congo, which you love, which my favorite part of Congo, having watched it just this week, but watching it twice, was by far Ernie Hudson's amazing transatlantic British like accent that he does for that film. It is that if I had seen that as a child, I think my crush would have immediately been transferred from Jeff Goldblum.
I'm Dr. Monroe Kelly.
Yeah, he talks like Tim Curry. I think he's doing a Tim Curry voice. Is the thing about it.
Yeah, and Tim Curry's doing some mixture of I don't know, Dracula and Hitler. I don't know.
Dracula and Hitler.
I don't know what he's
Also
doing.
Amazing, Adam. Dracula and Hitler. He's also doing David Harbour's accent from Black Widow, I think. Like, it's a little bit like in Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
Tornado scoops you.
Now I still have to see Black Widow. Don't judge me, people. I will. It's
actually way better. It's way better than you would think.
I'm looking forward to it. I just haven't had a chance to see it. I did see Old, but there's a reason for that. I'm doing a podcast tomorrow where I have to talk about it, and I didn't want to show up unprepared. Black Widow, I'm just going to pay the $30 on Disney Plus. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to watch it. But David Harbour doing a Russian accent excites me. But yeah, Herkimer Homolka's accent is not Romanian. It's not anything. I don't know. Yeah. Tim Curry's just having fun, and Frank Marshall didn't give a shit.
Yeah, and then Barry Hudson's like, I can use that voice. So also in Congo, like, I think I noticed this is the first thing. I don't usually look up that often to movies. Like, if you ask me a lot of plot-specific questions that involve me having to visibly see it, I'll probably miss a lot of them because I usually am so multitasking on stuff. However, the moment this movie started, I heard a voice, and I was like, Bruce Campbell's in this film? Because Bruce Campbell is in Congo, guys. A lot of people forget he's the boyfriend who opens the whole movie. He's the MacGuffin of all of Congo. Is Bruce Campbell.
He has a name, and it's Charles Travis.
It's Charles Travis, yeah. And he's got a Hershey's bar and an eyeball. He's got a bunch of stuff in this movie.
Because when you're in 120-degree jungle heat, what do you want? A Hershey's bar. That has not started melting in your fanny pack somehow.
Well, you know, they had a lot of like cutting edge technology with them. They had like lasers on turrets. They had John Hawks. So they just had a bunch of stuff.
They had mini air conditioners.
Yes, exactly.
That Laura Linney just had in a briefcase. She's like, here's your little air conditioner.
They had a hot air balloon. Came in handy. A bunch of things happened in Congo.
I don't know where that came from. Where did they find that?
But I think the year after Congo was released, there was another movie that had both Ernie Hudson still kind of doing a transatlantic accent, not British, but he is doing a voice. Like, I feel like, unless that's just how he talks, in which case, like, hats off to you, Ernie Hudson. You sound incredible. But I think it's sort of like a transatlantic, which, by the way, was always made up. Transatlantic accents don't exist. Like, Katharine Hepburn was just, they just had a voice that they did for movies back then. And it was like, it kind of sounded like this. Not quite British, but not quite American. And Ernie Hudson's just slaying that. He continues that in this movie with Bruce Campbell the following year, which I guess is also the year that was right after Twister, because this movie is called, hold on, guys, I got it for you. This movie was called, boom, Tornado.
Oh my goodness, that is. Okay, look, Drew, can I hop off screen for a second?
Yes.
Because I got to grab a prop. Give me a second.
Okay. I'll just make this the big part of the screen.
Okay.
Let me try to find some more tornado pictures for y'all. So this movie, I guess it was like a made-for-TV movie. Hold on, I'll find you another picture. But yeah, he's right. All these pictures are incredibly pixelated. Let's see what we can get up here. I watched this last night on Adam's behest. Hold on, let me bring it back here. And I don't know what to say, folks. We're going to get into it. But this is a movie I was not aware of until Adam told me about it. Starring Bruce Campbell and a lady. But lest you be confused, this is not a lady scientist. It's not one of those kind of movies. That would be like offensive of a stereotype. She's not a lady scientist. She is a lady auditor. So she's an auditor. And they bring that up about 100 times in this movie. It's basically the plot of Twister, except different. But not that different. Basically, it's like if Twister was like, what if Twister? Okay, let me bring you off. I was just saying this movie sort of reminds me of, it's like if Twister was only concerned between the relationship of Carrie Elways and Bill Paxton. Like they were like, that's the central relationship, and the other central relationship is between an old Sam Elliott and the Twister that killed his mother.
Yes. So I just wanted to.
Oh my God, Adam.
Yeah, I got a physical copy too. These are not easy to find. I bought this. If you look at the case, I don't know if anyone can see the case. It's got the art. This was one of those Blockbuster previously viewed purchases that I got for like $3.99. I think I was like, yeah. See, you got the. See that?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Some Greg Turkington vibes. I love it.
Yeah. So
What's the rundown?
Tornado is a movie I have always been fascinated with because I love Twister so much. And in 1996, there were two TV movies that came out to capitalize on the popularity of Twister. There was Tornado! And another movie that we'll talk about more on another date is Night of the Twister, starring Devon Sawa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't realize it's still alive. I thought he died, but he's
and he's going to be in the Chucky series that's premiering on Sci-Fi this fall. I'm so excited about that.
That's awesome because I loved him in Idle Hands. I was really sad when I thought he died, but I guess he never did. And
he's making a quiet little comeback. He's a good Twitter follow as well, by the way. He's fun.
That's why I found out he was alive because I was like, wait, the Devon Sawa's on Twitter and being like, sassy?
Yeah. Great. So Night of the Twisters is a lot of fun. We should bring that up in a future episode. But Tornado's the focus now. And what I'll say is, Tornado was like one of those movies that I was watching TV, and I saw this random preview saying hell hath no fury like a Twister. I'm like, wait, is this another trailer for Twister? And then I saw Bruce Campbell. I'm like, wait a minute. What is this? And then it's like, it was this whole new Tornado movie, and it was just called Tornado! Which to me at that age, I was like, sweet. I'm like, when's it coming to theaters? When's it coming to theaters? It's like premiering on ABC next week. I'm like, what? And I tuned in and I watched it live with all the commercials, and I thought it was so much fun because I was young and I was jonesing for more Twister. And I love Night of the Twisters as well. And so Tornado was like that last gasp of 1996 of Tornado movies. And we're going to talk about it a lot tonight, but it's near and dear to my heart. I saw Andres point out that I had the receipt. I do. Look at that.
How much was that? How much was this? You said $3.99?
It was $7.99, $8.55 with tax, and I paid with a $20 bill.
And this was last year. No, this was what?
No, this was oh my God, is there a date on this receipt?
There has to be.
Yes, December 29th, 2005.
Okay, so a little while back. I mean, have you seen that last Blockbuster documentary? But not to get too far off track, because I saw that and Sam Levine was just randomly in it, and I was like, oh man, just popping up.
Right.
That was pretty good. But what I haven't seen Twister in a while, but I liked it. Like my fear of Twisters and natural storms was very much like a act of God kind of fear. Like I was afraid that they were going to come and they were mindless. You know, it's storms, they're weather. You can't help the weather. It's like, tides or like anything else that's natural. This movie, I think way more so than Twister. Like you said if the tagline is "Hell hath no fury," like a tornado, that gives you a little sense about what kind of movie this is. This is a movie that the tornado kind of seems sentient, or it's not just one tornado, but they kind of act like it's just one tornado.
It's Jaws, the revenge of tornado movies.
It's exactly Jaws, the revenge. This guy is like the Quinn of this movie has been like angry at tornado singular since it
Ephraim. Yeah, Ephraim's pissed. Played by the incomparable L.Q. Jones, who does look like Sam Elliott because of the white mustache. But I gotta say, L.Q. Jones is a staple of westerns. He was in the original. He was in the Wild Bunch. I know him from The Mask of Zorro, and he has a brief appearance in Scorsese's Casino, of all things.
Who's he in Casino?
He's like the what do you call him? He's like the cowboy tycoon who walks into De Niro's office and he's like, some of us around here don't like how you're doing things. He's that guy.
Yeah,
that's
he doesn't say Jew, but he might say Jew because that's Texas Casino.
Yeah, it's like that South Park episode where they're like, "We don't take kindly to questions around here," and they just keep repeating that through the episode. We don't take kindly to people talking around. Like that's L.Q. Jones, but he is. His poncho is so on point. He is. The thing is, L.Q. knew he was like known for westerns, so when he showed up on the set for Tornado, he was like, I'm dressing myself, I'm putting on my hat and my poncho.
That's one of my notes. I was like, did he bring this in from home? And also, why doesn't he seem to know how to wear a poncho? He wears it like a cape throughout the movie, like it is thrown over his shoulders, like it is. Maybe he just came off of Zorro, I don't know, but he was definitely
maybe he just fell draft. He was older.
Maybe he did. Maybe he just wanted to wear a poncho. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. But this movie, Adam, set us up. What is the premise of this movie?
So have you seen? Okay, so I'd be remiss if you wouldn't mind a brief plug. I did talk at great length about Twister with Dan Merle on All My Movies, so go check that out if you haven't seen it. That was a lot of fun. And I said what I really need to say about Twister in that. But I know Twister's going to come up here, so I'll bring it up occasionally. All right. But if you want to hear my deep dive thoughts on Twister, go check out All My Movies. That said, hey, look at that, Rob Roach. Deep cut there. Yeah, LQ was around long enough that he got into directing. Like he was realizing his dreams. So Twister comes out. It's this mega hit, and they had to scramble. Like back then, Asylum wasn't out churning out the direct to DVD movies quite yet, but TV movies made up for that. TV movies were this special thing, especially in the 90s, that were a great, like you could rush something into production, get it onto TV, generate some ad revenue, get some decent TV actors or mid-level like actors to get in to be in the movie. And the thing was, Bruce Campbell and Ernie Hudson must have had the same agent, or they just got along with Congo.
That's my thought.
Yeah. And they both end up in Tornado a year later, which is amazing.
Yeah. I don't think they could have gotten along on set. They didn't share any scenes. They don't share any scenes in Congo. They're not even in the same place. None
whatsoever. But I'm so glad they share scenes in this because they're both so charismatic. And if they weren't in this movie, it wouldn't be watchable. It wouldn't be very interesting at all. They make it like an enjoyable enough experience, even though it's obviously a low budget TV Twister ripoff.
Yeah. I wonder, like, did Bruce Campbell have a help? Like, did he just decide to write his own dialogue? Because so much of this, the movie itself is say what you will about it and made for TV movies at the time, but the dialogue that Bruce Campbell says feels specifically like it was just naturally coming out of Bruce Campbell's mouth.
I feel like anyone who signs Bruce Campbell up for their movie must be willing to agree to a certain amount of improvisation because even in Congo, he says, he throws in things like, I got my Johnny on the spot laser here. Like, I'm like, okay, Campbell.
There's no way that was written. There's no way John Patrick Shanley wrote Johnny on the spot laser.
No, that was all Campbell. And I love it. Like, he's just so comfortable everywhere he is, whether, he's shooting a laser or he's running away from tornadoes that look like a lens smudge.
Oh my God.
But Tornado, the briefest explanation is it's a very similar premise to Twister. It's about a group of a smaller group of storm chasers.
Like two storm chasers. Oh, no. Four. Yeah.
Who are trying to get a device up into the clouds to get data that'll save people's lives. But where it differs is it's honestly a bit more focused on why disaster movies were trending in the 90s. And because that's when people were starting to finally talk about global warming, for the first time with seriousness. And in the 90s, it was very much a myth to a lot of people. And Tornado of all things, Tornado of all things opens up with like global warming is happening.
Yep, it ends with like that too. It ends by saying global warming is going to continue. These storms are only going to keep getting worse. Let's like get detection levels and like get these machines up and running because that's going to be the only thing that prevents us from all dying in tornadoes. Had I seen this as a child, I'm so glad I didn't see this as a kid because I would have read that as gospel truth. And even though it is gospel truth, you want to shield kids from certain hard facts in life. This movie hit very differently. Like watching it last night, I was like, yeah, Tornado might be onto something. Maybe like an actual genius wrote this. Because like, I'm sure that was a kind of brave statement to be making your whole movie.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, genius might be a strong word, but it was written by John Logan, who ended up writing Skyfall. He wrote Skyfall. He wrote Rango. He wrote a lot of big movies. Tornado was like early in his career.
Wait. I definitely know a fact about the guy who wrote Rango. So let me check this out. Let me Google real quick. There's a weird fact I feel like I know about the Rango writer. Maybe that's so weird. So he also wrote Tornado. Maybe that's why it actually kind of has a good vibe to it. Not a good vibe, but like it's got a vibe to it. It's got a whole thing. It knows what it is.
He wrote a lot of things that are a big deal. Let me continue. Yeah. He wrote The Aviator. He wrote
my God.
Sweeney Todd, Demon Barber of Fleet Street. I mean, it was an adaptation, but you get it.
Yeah.
Gladiator. He wrote a few episodes of the upcoming reboot of Penny Dreadfuls and the original Penny Dreadful. He wrote Alien Covenant. Okay. He wrote Spectre. Okay. He wrote Hugo.
Okay.
I mean, this guy's been around, and he started with Tornado. You just never know.
Yeah, Jesus. Well, he also wrote Any Given Sunday. My God, there was a bunch of stuff going on here. There's just a bunch of... Yeah, this was his first credit. You're right. This was his first credit was Tornado! Exclamation point.
I know.
And then, geez, yeah, this
But
guy's...
the thing, yeah, Tornado has a lot of surprisingly clever, sharp dialogue in it. Like, like it's not a home run by any means, but like he knows he's like got to write to a certain budget, so he's putting a lot into the character development, and like he's also writing an 80-minute movie made for TV, so like he has to cram everything in really fast, and it's clunky at times, but the characters still sound smart, especially Bruce Campbell and Ernie Hudson.
They sound incredibly good. And I will say, I was saying while you're gone, like, this is not a movie that falls into the trope of the woman scientist in a disaster movie. I'm not sure if you've seen that video. This on TikTok.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good.
So good. That's so good. But like, she's like, I'm not sure if like you know, but I'm a woman and I'm a scientist and I don't have time for marriage. And she's like reading it. She goes, oh no, like the machinations. And then she's like, you don't understand. My dad had a job at this lab, and that's why I have the job. It's not enough that like I would just have a random job. Like my parents would just be randomly mechanics. No, that has to be the connection. It's so funny. This movie does not do that. It has a female protagonist, and she is an auditor. And they say that about 100 times in the movie. And the only explanation for what they give of what an auditor does is it's kind of somehow like a Terminator. And long before that Glenn Close movie came out last year, there was apparently just a bunch of Terminator references in Tornado.
Look, I will tease one thing about Old, and this is a non-spoiler.
Terminator?
No, a character describes out loud the definition of what an actuary is.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No, that's like when you get up for to hear a wedding speech and they're like, Webster's defines marriage, and you're like, no, that's not good.
I'm an actuary. I assess risk. It's like, okay. And they go on beyond that, but I'll leave it. I'll stop there.
You know what?
Yeah.
Good thing he actually does explain it, because I thought an actuary had to deal with birds. So that's actually a good thing, I guess, if you want that
Oh, no, that's, what is that? An ornithologist?
I think I was thinking of tributary, which is where birds live sometimes.
Oh, and is it an aviary? Is that the word?
Oh, aviary. That's what I was thinking of.
Because I have an aquarium near where I live. Not to get too off track, but I have this low budget aquarium in New Hampshire. I took my daughter, and I spent a good chunk of change to go there. And because they can't like ship in like exotic wildlife to northern New Hampshire, they had when you go in, there's an exhibit of catfish and trout. And it's like cool. They're like the native species of New Hampshire. I'm like, you mean the entire United States? Yeah. And then
it's not like you guys aren't near water. You guys can
right. Where there's 1,000, well, not 1,000 lakes like Minnesota, but there's a couple hundred. And then they had an aviary in there out of nowhere, and my daughter freaked out because we went into the aviary and these birds were landing on people's heads. They were trained, and she's like, my kid is young, she's not even kindergarten yet. She was like, can we go? It's like birds are landing on people's heads. This isn't right. And I was like, let's get out.
Yeah, she's gonna be really good by the time she sees Hitchcock. She's gonna
be like, Drew, when I went to the door of the aviary, it was like this cage door. We went to the door, and this freaking parakeet flew out of nowhere and landed on the door with its claws.
Oh my
God!
On
the little cage and like looked at us.
Oh my God!
And I had to like flag a lady down to come like pick it up and take it away. It didn't want us to leave.
It was like a guard canary or parakeet or whatever. Yeah. That's creepy. I mean, your daughter picked up on something. She picked up on a sense that the birds weren't all right in there.
So we went from auditor to actuary to aviary. We're doing great.
Okay. So I think auditor and the other word that you said, actuary, I think they're kind of the same role.
There's some crossover there, but they can also be completely separate from each other, depending on who you're working for.
So her role is that she does what? She takes money, or she assesses money?
She assesses the risk on the ground, and then tries to structure it to back up the statistics for the company she's working for.
Right, because Ernie Hudson has a big grant that he's gotten to study tornadoes. He used to be Bruce Campbell's mentor. Or he is Bruce Campbell's mentor in this movie. I think he was like his college professor or something. I know Bruce Campbell isn't like living there. He goes visits there, and so he is living there, but she's not living there.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. You get it.
It's set in Texas, right?
I was wondering. Okay, good.
Okay, so it's set in Texas, but nobody's from Texas except LQ Jones.
Okay.
Apparently.
Missouri's brought up a couple times as a place.
Missouri's brought up, but that's where a lot of people went to college. Bruce Campbell's originally from Chicago. Ernie Hudson is from somewhere completely outside of Texas.
And the bad guy also went to Chicago or went to Missouri because they went to college together.
Yeah, they went to college together. And then Shannon Sturgis is Samantha, the auditor, and she's from Washington, D.C., but she's not from Washington, D.C.
No, but she thinks there's a lot of boys in Washington, D.C., she says.
Oh, so many boys.
It's so creepy.
But I find it fascinating that it's, all these people outside of Texas congregating in Texas. And the thing I discovered about this movie more recently that I told you about is their little home base, their little house where they hang out the whole movie is their house from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No. Is that for real?
It's for real.
Oh my God. Wait, no, I totally see it. That's nuts because we saw that house and Eric goes, isn't that Bill Weasley's house that they go escape to? And because of the upstairs attic kind of has that look of like from the Deathly Hallows Part 1 where they're interviewing that guy. Oh my God.
So if you go back and watch the original 74 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the house is iconic. And if you're watching Tornado, if you're watching Tornado and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's abundantly clear that it's the same house. Once if you're looking for it. I didn't pick up on it until I learned about it, and then I'm like, yeah, that's the house.
Now I want to look up other trivia about like Tornado because man, if they got that house, now I'm realizing Toby Hooper must have shot all the interiors just at one house. He didn't like go on a set or anything because that's the same attic, I think, right? As where she finds the mom and the.
It seems like it would be, but the exteriors and the front stairway, the front hallway leading up the stairs, that's all the same.
Oh my God, you're right. When they're talking in the hallway, it's the same place where there's a door behind it in Texas Chainsaw Massacre where you can see.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I just love the serendipitous nature of the production that like Bruce Campbell, horror icon, ends up in this, like for all intents and purposes, this cheap ass TV movie that he and Ernie Hudson elevate to a certain level because they're so good. And they just happen to shoot at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's I have a different inclination towards that, which is that was no happy accident. Like the guy must have been a huge horror fan. Like the director of it, like must have been like a huge horror guy and was like, okay, if I'm going to do a TV miniseries, which by the way, it was going to come out or it was already out. So like, there was no shame in doing like a made for TV movie. I mean, this movie has so many TV like commercial breaks. They're like, there's nothing quite like it. There's nothing.
With the quick fade to black and the fade up from black where you can tell the commercial break.
Or like, it's like if you watch movies, if you especially watch them on TV or if you watch them like for the TV edit, like you'll notice like that seems like a weird place to cut the scene. Like it just kind of fades out. There are hard stops. There are hard fades. I don't know how else to describe it. There are hard fades because it is made for TV and they had to do the commercials. Mm-hmm. But I feel like, the guy, there's a certain sort of cleverness in this movie. Talk to me a little bit about the introduction of our antagonist, not the hurricane, not the tornado, but like our main bad guy in this outside of the tornado.
All right. So Twister got me hooked on tornado movies, but Tornado does some things that are entirely its own that I really love. And one of those things is early on in the movie, they're like, it's time to go to Jimmy Jam's.
Oh my God.
And it's like, what's Jimmy Jam's? And then you go and it's the square dancing bar I have been trying to find my entire life.
Oh my God. Jimmy Jam's. I forgot it was named Jimmy Jam's.
Yeah. And that movie is the reason, like, whenever I'm in a rural part of the country, which is often, I want to go to some honky tonk bar where they're doing square dancing on a random Wednesday night and just get caught up with a pitcher of beer and square dancing and all that stuff. Because scenes like this, oddly enough, The only other scene in a square dancing bar that I put on the level of the square dancing scene from Tornado is the square dancing scene in season 1 of True Detective.
Oh my god!
Where they're all out on a double date at a square dancing bar and it's really tense. That's so good. Yeah. But they go to Jimmy Jam's and square dancing is underrated. It's a lot of fun. So Jimmy Jam's is like a square dancing barbecue place that looks amazing, and they all go there to like talk about the plot and set up the entire movie. And then Bruce Campbell's old rival from college, Richie Cochran, shows up,
and he's also there in Texas from Missouri, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, well, he's working for a local affiliate, but he just happens to be in the same small town. Of course,
they do refer to him as the big city newsman, or like the big city. They call him like the big city weather guy or something. The weather guy from the big city. Then
why in the goddamn is he in Jimmy Jam's? Just to spite Bruce Campbell and pick up on the woman that Bruce Campbell's into. Now, here's the thing: Bruce Campbell, you know, like acts like he's got like this in with Shannon Sturges early on in the film, you know, and so Richie Cochran waltzes up in his pleats, his very big pleated khakis.
He was supposed to be played in my mind by Judge Reinhold. It's 100% a Judge Reinhold part. Like,
well, this guy, whoever plays him, and I don't have it in front of me because he's some random TV actor who I mean, sorry if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, and he ended up going on to prestigious roles that I don't realize, but he looks like a poor man's Tony Goldwyn to me.
Oh, he does a little bit like Tony Goldwyn. When I was looking at him, me and Eric played this game all night of like who people look like, and there's so many parts in this movie that are amazing. So go ahead, this Judge Reinhold guy.
He waltzes up. Judge Reinhold, Tony Goldwyn pleats, walks up to Bruce Campbell, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing, Jake?" Is Bruce Campbell's name is Jake, and he's like, Richie Cochran, and all he does is he stops short of saying "son of a bitch," just like Bill Paxton. And,
oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, and then he introduces him to Shannon Sturges. He's like, "This is Richie. He's a weatherman for the big city news station." And he's like temporary weatherman. I'm a reporter, blah blah blah. Like he's acting like weatherman's a bad thing. But being a weatherman is something everyone's insulting Bill Paxton for in Twister. So it's of a piece.
And he's talking about literally a weatherman. Like Bill Paxton isn't on the news. This guy's like he's a news guy. Like he's I guess the reporter's like a different way of being like I'm in the field versus I stay in this comfy studio, this cushy weatherman gig. Whatever. But keep going.
Well, the thing is, he waltzes in, and within 30 seconds, he's not only dogging on Bruce Campbell, like clowning him, he's also hitting on Shannon Sturges and be like, "Hey, you want to join me tomorrow for like a weather excursion?"
And Bruce Campbell's like, "Sure," and she's all like, "No, maybe I do." She's like, just because it's that Bruce Campbell dynamic where it's like he's being really mean to her, he's kind of like negging her. And she's like really into it, but like they can't just get into it right away. They have to have a little bit of a, banter foreplay before that ever just gets right into it.
Exactly, and so it's a funny little scene that even though it's written very bluntly and obviously, the thing I like about it is Bruce Campbell is just so charismatic that he plays off of both actors so well, and then she ends up saying like. You don't tell me who I can dance with. He's like, all right, very well. And then she looks at Bruce Campbell, she's like, you want to dance?
And he's and all then
like, Not to mention, she comes out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house in her sexy little outfit with the frills and the cowgirl boots.
And she's like, tell me I didn't do something bad last night. And it's like, who are you asking? And then and then Richie drives up. So you're like, clearly you didn't do anything bad last night. But like, did she? Who is she talking to?
It's like, what are you doing in DC? Yeah, Miss Auditor. And then, and the thing I love is it's a 1996 movie, and everyone keeps calling her a yuppie.
They also keep calling her. Well, she refers to herself as a Terminator, which is just I don't think I caught why she refers to herself as a Terminator. There's constant
It's
Terminator
because she's the auditor they send into the field to essentially delegitimize claims that they're paying for. So like the whole mission of her going down to Texas is to visit Bruce Campbell and Ernie Hudson and be like, this is these people deserve to die. We shouldn't spend our money on supporting these claims, and see what we can do to undermine it.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be an interesting movie if Samantha didn't start learning the error of her ways.
Yes. I mean, absolutely. Richie has a change of heart too at one point. I mean, there's that whole thing where he's got to like be humbled a bit because he wants at one point Bruce Campbell's going to call him up and be like, "You've got to alert the public." I mean, at this point, can I be honest? These tornadoes keep hitting one town. They keep talking about like the one town they're trying to protect. That town should be aware of tornadoes. They happen daily, twice a day. It seems.
I know.
And yet they're like, "No, you've got to warn the town because there's people just." Every scene there's a tornado, there's a hilarious shot of like people grabbing stuff, like whatever is closest to them, and just bolting from the street. So in one shot, it's like a parent grabbing her son off the street. Another is like a kid grabbing his like toy car, and one is just a woman holding a bundle of rags, just racing across the street.
The stock actors they have in this are incredible. One of my favorite shots is like midway through the movie, and when I used to watch this movie with my friends, we would. Old DVD players, I don't have it on my current Blu-ray player. Used to have an A/B repeat function where you could set like as long a period of time as you wanted on your DVD. It could be 30 seconds, it could be 2 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, but you could loop a part of the DVD and just let it play over and over again. No. So like the first time I became obsessed with it was with Attack of the Clones. Because Ki-Adi Mundi, the Jedi with the giant head, the giant tall head.
I know who Ki-Adi Mundi is.
Yeah. Well, for our audience, in case anyone doesn't remember, he has this throwaway line about Count Dooku where it's a nothing line. He's like, he's a political idealist, not a murderer.
Oh, wow. Great impression.
Yeah. And
Ernie Hudson.
Well, we loop that. Me and my friends looped that line over and over again because we thought it was just the funniest thing. Go figure. And we did the same thing in Tornado when the tornado hits that random town and they're showing all the extras running around trying to look scared. And there's this one poor woman in mom jeans.
Yes.
And she's just opening and closing her car door to make it look windy.
Yes.
And it's just because
it's like a comedy bit. Like she's trying to open the door. Where are you going, lady? Like, get in a house. Go under. Like,
I know. Like, not to mention, it doesn't look remotely like you're struggling. It just looks like you're opening and closing the door on purpose.
It's almost Lynchian. It does. I do know exactly the thing you're talking about. I mean, there's also very funny one-offs. Like, we get a husband and wife who seem to be mid-argument or something, and like, cause she goes, "Where have you been?" And he's like, "Bleh." And then she's like, "Oh wow, it's really coming down out there." And suddenly, like a tree falls to their house. So, like, it just seems like this woman was catching her husband in an affair. We just never learned the rest of that story because a tree immediately comes into their house, and that's the function they served in the film.
Not to mention, this movie's all shot in broad daylight. They couldn't do what Twister did and shoot, like, during storms. They didn't have the budget for that, so it's all in broad daylight. And they're just staring out the window like, it's really coming down.
Yeah. This movie asks you to believe that, like, that the twisters come from, like, bright blue skies. There's an immediate twister, and then it's bright blue again, which maybe that's how they work. I mean, they are like these, what they call force majeures, but like, I don't know. It feels like there's a storm usually that's precipitating a twister. Like it's usually like a hot air pocket, right? It's usually one of those things.
Well, that's why the Jimmy Jam scene is amazing because Ernie Hudson goes way beyond that exposition scene in Twister where they're all at Aunt Meg's house and they're explaining the Fujita scale with all the different size tornadoes. And Jamie Gertz is like, oh my God, that's how tornadoes work. And the audience is like dialing into that. Shannon Sturgis is the audience avatar in this movie. Yeah, she's the proxy. So like when they're in Jimmy Jams, Ernie Hudson, he's like, here's a map of the United States. And then he's like, here's the cold front coming down from Canada. and I'm just like, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Again, this is why it's good. I didn't see this as a kid because I've been like taking notes. I've been like, okay, cold front coming in Canada. Much like a lot of my stories, I guess, from childhood and involving movies, I was at a swim meet after this thing with the Big Top Circus happened. I became intensely scared of storms, and there was another swim meet where I was like in the middle of not a relay, just a regular swim race. I was terrible at swimming. I don't know why my parents thought I loved it so much.
It's a hobby where you can.
It's a hobby. I guess it's something to do with the kids. There was a storm that kicked up in Delaware. I jumped out of the pool, and I'm realizing I probably lost a lot of matches for my team. Oh man, because I jumped out of the pool during this one again and was disqualified yet again during a match because I needed to go run underneath my parents' car because I knew that rubber was like, it would conduct the electricity, and like I just somehow figured out that was the safest place to be during a thunderstorm was underneath a car. I don't know. I feel like I'm now realizing the subplot here is actually, or the main plot, it was actually that my swim team hated me. They just hated me.
Well, they're not your problem anymore. Drew.
No, they're not.
And I had a similar fear of storms when I was a kid, which is why I obsessed over tornado movies. So Twister, Tornado, and Night of the Twisters specifically, I watched a lot of on repeat on VHS because they helped me cope with my fear of weather, and ultimately led to me going to my library and reading about it. And once I understood weather more, I became less and less afraid gradually of tornadoes. Like I still wouldn't want to move to Oklahoma, next year, but and not just because of the tornadoes. No offense, Oklahoma, but
shots fired, Adam. Shots fired.
Hey, it's also because
they have a terrible musical.
It has its moments.
Okay. Just push back. Okay, let's go.
No, not quite push back. Just if there's any Oklahoma fans out there, I don't want to lose them.
Right.
But
Oklahomans can go fuck themselves.
No. But at the same time, I also these movies force me into educating myself because the movies give you a little bit of like a primer on like how tornadoes work. And then if you're genuinely curious, you can look into, like how cold and warm fronts collide and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I'm honestly thankful for those movies coming out because if those movies hadn't come out and forced me to engage with a very real fear of mine at the time, I may have gone into high school being afraid of weather. Who knows? And that would have been a rough high school situation.
I mean, I feel like everyone right now is at the level of, like, when I go on Twitter and I go on trending stories and I see stuff like freaking out, no matter where you are in the world, it's like freaking out about the weather. I'm like, okay, so everyone's now at the level that I was at like age 8, like where I was constantly seeing the news being like, there's a drought, we're all going to die from lack of water, except that there's a flood over here and we're all going to die from too much water. That's where I was at 8 years old, and now that's just the news. So I was just a really smart 8-year-old, me and the person who made Tornado.
Yes.
There is another thing about this character that I love a lot. This bad guy sort of character, which is that his relationship, his dynamic. What am I trying to say here? The dynamic of every single minor character in this film seems like they were tasked with coming up with their own backstory and like really fleshing that out. Kind of like how Sam was saying in the Glorious Bastards thing, like that he was given a whole backstory, or he helped develop one about where his character was from. This guy, when you see him alone without Bruce Campbell at work, and he's kind of like getting pressured not to say there's a storm. I don't know. I felt like that was really good acting. I feel like he was like, okay, guys, like I was just informed there was a storm and we got a report on it. And the guy's like, I don't know. Have you checked this source? And he's like, oh, no, it's probably nothing. Like, I'm just freaking out. Like, you just watch him in that moment and be like, okay, I've got to make a decision. Like, this guy I don't like, or like the future of my job that I'm temporarily at.
Right.
Makes the wrong call. I don't know. There's a lot of pathos in this one guy's journey and his arc, and he ultimately is redeemed because he's at the funeral. Yeah,
and I really appreciate. John Logan literally went on to write Oscar-winning and Oscar-nominated films. Literally,
yeah.
Gladiator, Skyfall, lots of stuff.
Rango,
like. Frickin' Twister, frickin' Tornado. That's nuts. Like if the writer of Twister had gone on to win Oscars, and maybe he did, or she. Sorry, I don't have that trivia poll on the top of my head. But like, I'm really impressed with John Logan because he started with Tornado.
Look, I agree with you, man. I'm 100% there. It's kind of like my thing that I have right now with John Patrick Shanley, where it's just sort of like, if you have a career as a screenwriter in Hollywood, you can be like a sort of, a journeyman and just take whatever is given to you. And then there are people I feel like this who have passions that are very wide ranging and go across all things. And it's just, I don't know. This is such a good thing. It's I am reading about Twister. Everyone.
Michael Crichton and Anne Marie Martin. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Michael didn't write the book?
Yes, well, they co-wrote the script. Like, I was just
Gotcha.
spacing on it for a second. Yeah, that's a big part of why Twister was a big deal.
Wonder. Yeah.
So, like, we have all this Michael Crichton stuff tying back together. I find it interesting that, Campbell and Hudson were in a Crichton movie, and then we're in a Crichton ripoff movie the next year. That's
you're right. It's
pretty fascinating. Yeah.
And in neither of them, I'm sure, was Ernie Hudson's character written to be black, but then Tornado comes along and it's just way, way different. I forgot Philip Seymour Hoffman was in Twister.
Oh, he's so good. Like, he's Dusty, and he just adds so much fun to the movie. I mean, that whole group of storm chasers is fun. Now, okay, can we talk about Tex? And we really got to talk about other stuff other than Tornado. But I have to talk about Tex first.
Tex looks like, so Tex is like the other storm chaser guy, right? He's the other one. He's like a friend of theirs. Is he a storm chaser? Or is he just Jake's buddy, Bruce Campbell's buddy? He's Jake's buddy. He's got a fiance. Here's a big deal about Tex. He's got a fiance whose butt he likes to squeeze like a totally heterosexual man during dancey time with his wife at Jimmy Jam's. It is a very
Jam's so bad.
It is such a goosing your future wife moment that you're like, that man is performative heterosexual. Not there's anything wrong with that, but it's just a very weird moment. He's getting married, and that's like the continuous joke is he's getting married to this woman and she's okay with storm chasing, or is a storm chaser herself, unclear. And they get caught up in one of the twisters or the tornadoes! Exclamation point. What am I missing?
I don't think you're missing anything. You're covering the more important aspects of his through line there. But the thing I find fascinating about Tex, other than his ambiguous sexuality, is the fact that he goes out of his way to establish parts of his past. Sturgis says like, Tex, where'd you get that name from? He's like, well, I'm from North Carolina. And she's like, then why aren't you called Carol? And he's like, because I'm called Tex. Like, he does not take that well.
No, he doesn't take that well. That's what I'm saying. They came up with their own backstories and were asked to reveal them on set.
But his fiance fascinates me as well, because there's that scene where they're all at the people's house having lunch, and that little girl has been waiting the whole scene to deliver her line. She's like, y'all want to come out back and see my special treat?
Oh my God. Yes.
Or whatever. And that girl had been in regional theater her whole young life, and had finally
got it. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
These are regional theater actors. These not reek, but they waft pheromones of regional theater.
They do, especially her and Richie Cochran. And that's when Tex's fiance just looks at her and she's like, nobody wants to hear about your stupid treat.
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
So good. Damn. It's so funny. Now I can only think of the fact that this was, the guy who wrote Rango. This is a Rango movie. I see Mistake, is saying, shame I didn't hear for D. King. I think you mean Stephen King?
Oh, wait. We haven't covered Stephen King or Bret Easton Ellis yet. We've just been so hung up on this masterpiece.
We have just gotten to Tornado. This is
what $7.99 on Amazon Digital. You can't rent it. You can only own it, but it's worth the $8. Go watch Tornado.
Yeah. And I will just say this at the end. One of the characters does not make it because he was fighting with the tornado. Oh, we forgot the part where the tornado has a sentience. At one point, they're watching the tornado as it blows away, and they're like, oh, no, we missed it. We missed the tornado. Mm-hmm. And then the tornado, hears them. Like, in Jurassic Park style, the tornado's like, what? And, turns around, and the tornado circles back and starts, going towards the town. And they're like, oh, no. And then later in the film, the guy's she's like, well, wait, how are we going to go find the tornado? And he's like, don't worry. It's coming. He's like, we don't have to worry about that. It's coming right for us. And this is a constant line, through line in the movie, especially near the third act, which is this tornado is out for blood. It's just one tornado. It killed the guy's mother. It is just the same tornado, just keeps reaching down from different areas. There's not more than one tornado. It's just one thing.
And I'd venture to say if you move to the Bahamas, it would follow you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Actually, that's very funny. Eric points out, he was like, well, what happens if the tornado goes on an airplane? It's a It Follows situation. It just has all these rules of tornadoing. When I was a kid, I thought, this is a good segue, Drew, because when I was a kid,
I was so scared of tornadoes. I remember asking one of my teachers, I said, if I move to Maine, will I be safe from tornadoes? Because I don't think they have tornadoes up there.
Because you never read about them in Stephen King.
And then he said, yeah, they don't have many tornadoes up there, but there's a lot of snow. And then I became fascinated with Maine. And then I remember connecting that it was set in Maine, and then I started reading a ton of Stephen King books at way too young an age.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But there is a connection there. That's not contrived. That's a genuine connection from my specific life experience.
I mean, there's Stephen King. I mean, I remember my dad telling me, because I got into Stephen King way too early as well. It's up there with like Rocky Horror Picture Show, and like the first thing, I'd say like the first books I ever got into were Stephen King books. Because my dad gave me The Shining, and he's like, I read this when I was too young. Like, I don't know why this is the thing my parents did. They're like, I read this when I was too young, and it scared the shit out of me. He said he read it at a beach, and hearing the waves lap, he'd gotten very scared of the ocean because it felt like just this very traumatic, overwhelming experience to be reading The Shining about this desolate, like snowed in place, and then to hear this constant waves of the ocean, like this unrelenting thing, this entity that couldn't, like, you know, that wouldn't stop no matter what. Like, it would be there when you woke up, and it would be there when you fell asleep. And so he's like, anyway, that's my story about like reading The Shining. Here you go. It gave it to me, and it terrified me.
Did you read it before you ever saw the film?
Yeah, I read it before I saw the film. Actually, the first King I think I saw was a made-for-TV movie, and it wasn't it. It was The Langoliers. Now
I love The Langoliers.
I love The Langoliers. Bronson Pinchot, Balky from Stranger Things as the bad guy. This is a movie, really good concept, actually. In terms of like Stephen King plots, this might be one of his highest concept ones, and I love it. I loved if they would explore this bigger. It was just part of yeah, go ahead.
Isn't he also the guy from Beverly Hills Cop 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Balky. He's a perfect Strangers guy. He's got this funny accent. He's also, if you watch The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, he's the principal. So Langoliers, real quick.
Yeah.
It's a novella. It's part of 4 short stories that I think were in. I forgot the name of the book they were in. 4 Past Midnight.
It's that or Skeleton Crew.
It's either
I think 4 Past Midnight is the one.
Right, because it's not short stories. It's just like 4 little novellas.
Yeah.
And so it's about these people, and they are all in an airplane. You get from different POVs at first. You're getting different people's perspectives. And they're
4 Past Midnight is correct.
Yes, sweet. I nailed it. He's also the cokehead in True Romance. Good point. Surge. He's Surge. A lot of people are saying. So you're getting a lot of people's perspectives. Everyone's coming in from their different traumas. Like a pilot's there. His wife has died. He's flying to the funeral. There's like a guy like Bronson Pinchot. It's like he's about to close a big deal and his dad's like the owner of a bank, and he's about to close this big deal, but actually he's about to go blow the big deal on purpose because he can't stand the pressure. Because specifically, as the book says, there are some fish that live so deep underwater that like pressure is their body is built for just extreme amounts of pressure. And have you like, if you fish for them and try to bring them up from above the ocean depths, they will literally explode from the lack of pressure. And he likens the character to one of those fish that lives so deep underwater under such extreme amounts of stress all the time that literally trying to bring him up from the ocean depths will cause him to literally explode.
Yeah.
There's a blind girl. There's these 2 high schoolers that are unrelated, but they're just there. There is an Australian man who I think is a mercenary. He's just like, he just kills people for money. Then there is, I know in the movie it's played by the guy from, Blue Velvet and Quantum Leap, but what's his name? Dean Stockwell.
Oh, Dean Stockwell. Yeah, he's Bob Jenkins.
He's the writer. So these people are all waking up. They have flown into the Aurora Borealis. So they've flown into the Northern Lights. The plane went through there, but they're just all waking up and no one else is on the airplane. So the airplane's empty. Then they land the airplane. Thank God one of them is a pilot. And they end up in an abandoned airport. They can't get lighters to work. The air smells funny. Everything tastes weird. And there's this weird distant hum in the background. I'm just explaining the plot of Langoliers because this is a really good story, actually. And what they figure out is they're in the past. But not like the past, like how we think of the past. The past is a static thing that exists for a short period of time after it, like, it's moved on from the present and then the future. And the past is constantly being eaten by these things called the Langoliers, which are just kind of these world-devouring giant balls of like teeth. And so they
AKA Eliath from Loki.
It is literally alive. It is. That's what I was thinking. It's literally alive
Yeah.
from Loki. It just comes and devours the whole world. So they have to figure out how to get off the
Stephen
ground.
King did it first, folks.
Yeah, Stephen King did it first. But it's such a good concept because the way they have to figure out, like, even if you're like a sci-fi writer, or even if you have somebody on your crew that's crazy, figuring out that you're in the past, but only like 5 minutes in the past, but the past is like you're stuck there and no one else is there and food tastes weird. That's so hard. That's such a leap of logic. Like, you'd go to 100 other explanations before you realize, oh, maybe we flew through the Aurora Borealis and everyone who was asleep got to live and everyone who wasn't asleep died and disappeared. It's bonkers.
The Langoliers is a really fun miniseries despite its limited budget because, like Tornado, it has a lot of really good actors in it who are really fun to watch. The thing I love about Bronson Pinchot, I used to work at, I've said this on shows before, in my early 20s, I spent a few years running GameStops for a living, like a lot of people. And it was rough.
Did you get any stonks?
What?
Did you get any stonks? Stocks?
Nope.
Oh,
That was way after my time. But I had this employee at one of my stores, a guy named Joey, who was just one of the funniest people I ever met. And he and I discovered we were both really into the Langoliers one day when we were bored. And from there on out, for the entire year I worked there, occasionally I would just look over at Joey and he'd have a random piece of paper and he would tear it apart while rolling his eyes back.
Oh, yeah. See, that's Brandon's thing. He tears paper really slowly.
Yeah. It's such a weird affectation that is very Stephen King.
But what's funny is I adapted that affectation. I mean, affectation. I adopted that, like, without realizing it. That became my thing. When I was very nervous, I would tear up things of paper and then like leave just piles of paper wherever I went. And then one day I put together, I was like, am I doing that because of the Langoliers? It's wild. I mean, the book is, I mean, the story is fucking wild. The made-for-TV movie, I was obsessed with it for some reason, and that really got me into Stephen King, like, through that wormhole.
Very much. And I just have to say, Drew, I saw in the comments, people were saying, Elias showed up in the comics before the Langoliers. Well, Elias, I believe, was 93, and 4 Past Midnight was written in 1989. So,
ooh, there we go. Facts.
Like, dig into it more. Maybe I'm wrong, but even so, the Langoliers still did it on screen first.
You're right. You know what? And right, because Elias, he's like the opposite of the Langoliers. He lives in the future, and he eats all of existence that exists in the future. This thing, they just eat the past, because at one point they do go into the future. They get the plane running again. I forget how, because the oil shouldn't be, or the fuel shouldn't be working in the past, because nothing is like catching fire, nothing ignites. But so they go past the Aurora Borealis again. They fly into the Northern Lights. They figure out they all have to be asleep again to not die or disappear. So one of them agrees to stay awake and fly the plane through, and he dies. And the rest of them, they wake up and they're in the future. And like, that's cool for like a minute or two, because the future tastes great and all the food tastes amazing. And in the future, like, everything's awesome. But like, right when they like, they have like 10 minutes in the future or something where they land the plane, they're like, everything's great. And then the present collides with them, and they like are suddenly like visible to everybody, and they exist again, which always scared me as a kid, because I was like, wait, does that mean they could actually phase into the past? Like, if the future can become the present, what's stopping any of them from phasing into the past? It was an existential quandary.
Now, Cary Fukunaga was the original director for It, and I would have loved to see his version. I ultimately enjoy Muschietti's movies. I think the first one's better than the second, but I still think it deserves a 10 to 12 part miniseries on HBO, Netflix, or something comparable, because 2 movies is not enough. 2 parts is not enough. It's a 1,000-page book. It should be a series. Yeah, honestly, it's just too in depth. So I would love to see Cary Fukunaga come back to HBO and do a Langoliers reboot. But that's just a fantasy. That's just a fantasy.
I remember in 2016 when they were coming out, or 2017 when they're coming out with the Gunslinger. I mean, I went, why aren't they doing the Stand? Like, this is the time to do the Stand. I know they recently redid it and it was like, whatever. But I was like, man, Trump is president. Everyone's like, everyone's divided into these 2 camps. It does feel like the end of days. And this was before the pandemic. I was just like, things are getting really like the standy around here. And then, of course, we had to come up with like a virus like Captain Trips. And then everyone did divide into the camps of like sane people and people who just want to be in Las Vegas right now.
I'm obsessed with The Stand in all its versions, good and bad. The book and both miniseries, I'm here for them all.
Do you think Skarsgård did a good job? I actually didn't see the new one. I just heard it was not great. But like, did you like the Skarsgård version?
I did ultimately. I think my biggest complaint with the CBS series is it should have been 12 parts, not 8.
Oh my God, your thing is just everything needs to be longer.
Yeah, well, I mean 8. I mean it's still like they. The thing is they adapted it, but they also added some new stuff that wasn't even in the book, and I'm like, you have so much you still need to.
Yeah.
I like the CBS version.
I like the CBS version too. I really do.
Well, both. I mean, I was referring to the current iteration, but the original version too. I own on Blu. No, they're both CBS, but like the original version, I own on Blu-ray. I'm very fond of it, even with its limited budget. The final chapter is the only one that the low budget really shows, I think.
Right, because there has to be an atomic bomb that goes off in the city of Las Vegas, and that would be notoriously. Las Vegas has shut down filming or shut down all its lights for exactly one film, and it was Honey, I Blew Up the Kids. And that's it. That's the only time Las Vegas has agreed to shut down all their lighting systems. And like, I can't imagine them doing that on a big scale. I mean, the best part of Langoliers, the TV show. I mean, there's so much. There's Gary Sinise. There's the Moon guy, the guy from Coach, who's like, there's Rob Lowe.
Oh, The Stand.
Yeah, The Stand. And then there's Miguel Ferrer, just in a great Miguel Ferrer role. Guys, Miguel Ferrer, R.I.P. Rest in power, Miguel. Great actor. You would know him in Twin Peaks. He's Albert, the other FBI agent who's full of salt and vinegar, but has probably the best speech in all of Twin Peaks. Just full stop. Hot take, Adam. I think Miguel Ferrer's speech in Twin Peaks season 1.
Oh, about Gandhi and King.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Best speech, I think, probably in television history up until that point.
Because he's been dogging Harry Truman the entire time. Sheriff Harry Truman, not President Harry Truman. Yeah. It's a whole thing.
Really mean.
So
like, he keeps referring to people as yokels. He's just like such an asshole. And then the sheriff had decked him all once already in the face, and then he's about to deck him again. And Albert gives this whole speech about like how he's a hatchet man for like truth and beauty and love, and like how he follows the path of like Dr. Martin Luther King, and like, he's so beautiful. And then he's like, and mine is a way of love. And he's like, I love you, Sheriff Truman. And that's just gorgeous. What a beautiful speech for an asshole character to give.
Which is why his outward aggression, I always felt, was just provocative behavior to suss out the bullshit of people he was dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I always felt a kinship to Albert, because I was like, no, you have very low tolerance for like annoyances, but your feelings about life, your grand thesis about life is very generous and magnanimous. It's just you have in the moment very like easy triggers. Like, you're triggered very easily.
So he plays Lloyd Henreid in The Stand, and he's really good in that. But there's another Stephen King adaptation that he was in that isn't as talked about.
What is it?
Called The Night Flyer. So The Night Flyer is it got a very limited theatrical release, but it was essentially purchased by HBO in the mid '90s and released on their network. Wow. I don't know if it's technically even Schmoedown eligible because of its limited theatrical release.
I don't think so, because like I feel like limited releases now, if they're like current releases, that counts.
Yeah.
But, like, limited releases in the 80s, I don't know. That would be beyond festival.
Well, this was 97, based on a short story that was part of the Nightmares and Dreamscapes collection.
I really got serious.
So The Night Flyer is about a tabloid reporter named Richard Dees, played by Miguel Ferrer. And it's so much fun. He plays a guy who works for essentially a National Enquirer type rag. Mm-hmm. And he's made his living writing about things like Bat Boy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then the Night Flyer shows up, and the Night Flyer is supposedly this mysterious pilot who shows up in a plane at night at these small podunk airports in the middle of the country. Mm-hmm. And then in the morning, like whatever handful of employees were at that small airport are dead and drained of their blood. So and And it even takes it so far as like it's a black plane with red curtains. It's so great. And Miguel Ferrer really sells it. You would really like it.
Wait, does he play the tabloid reporter?
Yeah, he plays the tabloid reporter who just doesn't believe what's happening, and he's super pissed about even being bothered with it. But he wants to get to the bottom of the story, and it's just a great mid-90s Tales from the Crypt style movie with a lot of.
Check that out.
It's hard to find. I had to get a physical copy online because I couldn't find. You have to torrent it or buy a physical copy. Those are your only options, really.
What was your favorite King growing up?
Growing up was It, the original Tim Curry It, because I just watched it a lot. Mm-hmm. And then I read the book at 12. But there is one miniseries that caught my interest back then that I read the book after the fact, and that was the Tommyknockers.
Oh my God. That when you said that you like the Tommyknockers, I have still not seen. I have to say I was supposed to watch it for this week's episode, but I'll watch it. I swear to God, it is my favorite Stephen King book. Full stop. The Tommyknockers. It's one of the ones he wrote while totally drunk, and it totally shows because the main character is an alcoholic who is saved by his alcoholism. Essentially, that's like what saves him, or like
it is.
Yeah,
it is, and it's. I have so many thoughts. I do have to address Andres fairly put in the chat. Do not torrent.
Yeah.
I agree. Do not torrent. I was just acknowledging the fact that people do, but I did, Andres, for what it's worth. I paid about $10 to buy a physical copy of Night Flyer on eBay. I did the buy it now thing because I didn't want to wait, and I got it shipped to me, and I watched it. It was wonderful, and it's on my shelf right now.
I do want to talk about the Tommyknockers. I need to run to the bathroom real quick. It'll take 5 seconds, but why don't you, in the interim, explain sort of the plot of the Tommyknockers, because it's so good.
Oh, I would love to. Well, I have a copy of, actually, you know what? If you guys will forgive me for standing up for a second, let me just grab this. Okay, so this is my original copy from, I believe it was 1988 when the book came out, The Tommyknockers. You can tell it's an original print because look at vintage Stephen King there, right? So I got this. I did get this at a used bookstore some number of years ago, so it's not like I bought it when I was a toddler. But this book I bought because I was so into the miniseries growing up. And what happened recently, and we'll get into the plot details soon, is I listened to the audiobook of the Tommyknockers, which was narrated by Edward Herman from Gilmore Girls and the Lost Boys, and he did a great job narrating it. He was fantastic. May he rest in peace. But then that got me to go back and watch the miniseries, which we will talk about momentarily. But if you haven't read the Tommyknockers or you haven't seen the miniseries with the illustrious Jimmy Smits, it is a sci-fi story set in Maine, of course, about a small town in which a woman discovers essentially a spacecraft buried in the forest behind her property. And she discovers it by happenstance and starts digging at it. And as she digs away at it, the spacecraft has an impact on everyone in the town. And it changes their psychology and their physiology. And without getting into too many details, it's essentially a story about metamorphosis. It's a body horror story for a lot of people, but it's also a story about, small town hive mentality. And Jimmy Smits' character is a guy who is a bit of an outsider, and he ends up coming to town for his friend who discovers the spaceship. She says, "Please come help me look at this thing." And he stays because he's worried about her. But he, as Drew said, he's also battling alcoholism. And
Just wanted to say you're both awesome. They'll be watching from the start tomorrow. Stay classy, San Diego.
Nice.
Oh, wait, do you remember how Ann Wilkes killed the sheriff in the book?
Yeah.
Truly horrifying.
Annie Wilkes from Misery? How she killed the sheriff?
in the book,
In the book,
because they didn't do it the same in the movie.
Wasn't it the pigs? Wasn't it? Didn't she feed them to the pigs?
That rings a bell. I didn't want to run away with it right away, but I think that is accurate.
Or like something happened. I know she probably feeds the body of the pigs. I don't know how she killed them. I'm guessing sledgehammer. My money's on sledgehammer, but I don't remember. How'd she kill him in the movie?
Honestly, I don't recall the specifics. I think it's rather benign, not benign, but rather banal is the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I think it's something. Yeah.
Yeah, like honestly, if anyone hasn't seen or read Misery, I don't want to get too spoilery about it, just because that's one of his like thrillers that's very twisty, turny, and fun. And you get very attached to the characters. But I was just telling them, Drew, Tommyknockers is a very, very bizarre story about, small town hive mentalities and, an outsider coming in. And he happens to be an alcoholic, but he's also the sanest guy in the town. And he's watching all these people become monsters, essentially.
Well, and he's not he's from the town. He's just been on book tour. So he's not from away. He knows everybody in town. His deal is that he's not even the main protagonist, or I guess he kind of is. It's from his POV. The main protagonist, or it's like it's omniscient, his POV. So it's like somebody's telling you about him and then about everyone else in town. But it's mainly about the girl the woman that he's always sort of like, had a friendship with. She's got a dog. She lives alone by herself on this, big property that I think she inherited from her family. It's kind of implied she might be a lesbian, but it's never like stated directly. She's got an older sister who is an amphetamine addict who is like very cruel to her, because that's like a Stephen King trope, is like the very cruel sibling that like traumatized you as a kid. And what happens is she, like, one day in the woods, she kind of comes across an area where all the animals are either dead or they're all missing, and her dog starts whining, and she trips over something, and it's like a piece of something. And she's trying to dig it up because first she thinks it's a can, and she keeps digging and digging. And the next thing we know, we're cutting to like her friend coming in from out of town, sort of wondering, like he gets sobering up. He's like not feeling great, came back from book tour. By the time he gets to town, she's able to make a typewriter move with her mind. She's created all these gadgets. She's become like a super genius. She's becoming like a super villain level of genius, although she's still like kind of benign. The dog is missing, and then people in town start acting really weird. Now, what I love about this book, without giving too much away, is it's basically how being intelligent is not the same thing as being smart. Like, It's about the idea of, like, imagine a bunch of, like, Trump supporters mid-country getting hyper-intelligence, like being able to suddenly rig all the bombs and explosives and make 3D projections and basically have, like, technology inserted into their brain, or, like, ideas inserted into their brain and their bodies, because it starts transforming their bodies. But it doesn't make them any smarter of human beings. Like, they still have all their own hang-ups. There's a great line where I think the mayor is tucking what is like a vestigial tail into like his pants and cutting a little hole for it. And he's like, why, sir? Like, a person can just get used to just about anything.
But at that point, you're so on the story's wavelength, like you're rolling with it. Now, the miniseries isn't as graceful, to be fair. And Andres is right, that like he was pretty hopped up when he wrote this, but that was the case for a lot of his stuff in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Cujo, he wrote when he was completely blackout drunk. Like, yeah.
If your protagonist in the book is an alcoholic who, like, they never refer to as like other people refer to him as an alcoholic, but like the book clearly does not take the stance that this guy's problem is the main problem of the book. He probably wrote it very good.
Cujo is the alcoholic, because he writes that book from the dog's perspective in certain parts, and it's just very, very exciting. Oh, what do we have here?
They'll catch the rest of this when I return.
Well,
You both have a wonderful night.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Well, like, I don't believe we're going to get through all of Stephen King tonight, but I just want to get through the Tommyknockers, because I didn't know it was like, I didn't know anyone else loved this story as much as I did.
Well, it's still in development to be rebooted as a theatrical film, and I heard James Wan might produce it, which was an exciting possibility. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. You know who I'd like to give it to? The guys who are doing the new Scream movie and who did Ready or Not. Because I feel like they have a good sense of, like, the irony of this film, the push-pull of this film. It's very much like geniuses, but they're still very stupid. Like the
inaugural episode.
Hey.
The discussion.
Thank you, NerdChronic. Thank you for those credits. Those
Yes.
credits, man. If you guys haven't seen it, when this show is over, go back and watch the opening credits. They are crazy good.
Be Still My Beating Heart, that footage from Dead Man. Oh,
It's not so good. You know what I realized? It's Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk is what the Tommyknockers is. It's like, what if you were like so smart that you could build rockets, but yet you were so dumb? Like you were the worst.
And that's what happened. Like, again, without giving too much away, like these people develop aptitudes and abilities beyond their comprehension. And while there's a practical application for that, there is no actual wisdom behind it.
They don't they don't do anything for mankind. All they do is like settle petty grievances that they already had prior to
within their stupid small town.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I think is called Haven. I could be wrong, but now I just have to say, part of the reason I had so much fun rewatching this miniseries not too long ago is because of Jimmy Smits. Jimmy Smits is Gardner, Guard. He's like the main character, the alcoholic, and that character is decidedly a white male New England type in the book. But that was one of those unself-aware casting choices in the early 90s where Jimmy Smits was big because of LA Law, and they're like, let's put him in this TV movie of a Stephen King adaptation, and I got to give it to Jimmy Smits. He is on the entire movie. He doesn't half-ass anything. He's really stressed the fuck out about everything that's happening with this ship and these people. And I tweeted a video a few months ago because I was watching the Tommyknockers, and they take a few liberties with the story towards the end. So it's not a spoiler for the book or potential remake, but there's this scene in the movie where he's on a spacecraft of sorts, and he gets his hands on this alien dummy, and it's very obviously a mannequin. And I just thought it was amazing. It was like that A/B repeat obsession I was telling you about earlier. And I filmed my TV of just him grabbing this alien dummy and throwing it and yelling with the dramatic music. And Drew, that was one of my I wish I didn't at him though. Actually, Jimmy Smits isn't on Twitter. I don't think. I double checked.
Really? I feel like as you were talking, I was like, oh, the real Jimmy Smits at _, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think Jimmy Smits does Twitter. Yeah,
he seems like the kind of person that would.
He's like Machete. He's like Machete.
It seems like him and Deborah Messing would be huge on Twitter.
But the thing that was great about Smits in that movie is he's just completely committed, and he's like a low rent version of Daniel Kaluuya in Get Out in that movie.
Oh, and I was going to say, the interesting thing is that he's not just a white dude. So him being in the town would, by definition, make it a more interesting.
It does make it more interesting. It does, even though the filmmakers were not thinking that, I'm sure. They were just casting a popular actor, which kind of makes it a great incidental stroke of genius.
Do they ever address his race? Do they ever say, like, hey, you're not one of us?
Nope, they never bring it up. But they're constantly talking about Guard, about how he's the outsider in town, how he needs to leave, and all this stuff. So it has this resonance to it, even though it's got clunky dialogue and it's funny and it's got bad effects. There's a resonance to the movie.
I mean, the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, and so I love Jimmy Smits. I always have. When he came back in Rogue One to play Bail Organa, I lost my mind. That was the thing I was the most excited about when I saw the trailer. And then I loved him in The Heights. I was like, thank you, Dancing Jimmy Smits. I still need to watch that.
Dancing Jimmy Smits. I still need to watch it. I did not know he was in it. So here's the thing that I will say that's also great about the Tommyknockers. Again, I need to watch the miniseries, but the book, which I've read several times, is how each person in town has a different interpretation of where this information that's getting beamed into their consciousness is coming from. Like one lady, and this is something Stephen King does very well. He does it very well in Needful Things. It's sort of getting you into like a slice of life of every archetype in town. So there's like the gossip, like the like busybody, whatever. And there's this one woman who I think was one of the earliest ones. Yeah, she's got to be because her husband's the post office dude, and that's who's the first person who's infected besides the main character, because he has to travel from house to house. So it's the wife of the post office guy, and she believes that Jesus Christ has started talking to her. Like he's on a big picture, above her TV, and she believes that Jesus Christ is talking to her, telling her about her husband's affair, which he is having, but like she would have no way of knowing. So he's like, your husband's having an affair. Here, build this bomb. And like, she's like, I don't know, Jesus, should I? And Jesus is like, yes, you absolutely need to build this bomb. And here's how. And like, just started giving her the information. So she builds the bomb, blows up everyone else. Meanwhile, her husband's busy. He's built an organizer, like a mail organizer filer. But he's really worried that it's going to leave him unemployed because who needs to like do his job? Like they're all worried about such small stakes at the end of the day.
I know.
Like, yeah, they create a huge hologram projection in town to cover up something that happens.
Which is such an elaborate way to cover it up.
Yeah.
Okay, I found the clip.
Okay, let's put it up.
Okay, let me make sure the audio is good.
Wow, that's a Kevin Sorbo disappointed kind
of. All right, one more time, just because I didn't.
Oh my god! Just luggage.
Jimmy is committed. That's my point.
I also imagine that thing was heavy. I'm sure that wasn't like a light mannequin. I think if I'm remembering correctly, it also ends with the idea that even the original beings that had this technology were dumb enough to crash their plane. Like, so, nothing's infallible. Even being intelligent is not infallible. Which I think is, I don't know. It's a very, when I think of where Stephen King probably was in his life right then, like, it's a very interesting swipe at the high-minded ivory tower kind of, people who didn't consider his work real literature. Like that.
Well, Drew,
people, yeah.
I just want to show when you stepped away, I did bust this out. My original 1988. Look at it, Steven on the back.
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing. I once did a whole summer of forestry research up in Orono, Maine, because I was hoping that Stephen King, I would just run into him on the street, let alone like that he doesn't even live there in that part of Maine. I was just really hoping that I'd run into him. And I did run into someone who looked like Stephen King. So I went up and asked him, and he was like, I am not Stephen King. But don't feel bad. I get that all the time because I live in Maine. And that's everyone.
Yeah, I'm sure he's used to it. But I won't bring it up now, but like on a show I did with you a while back, I showed you that footage of when I went up to his house, because I've been to Bangor, Maine several times for my job, and his house is public knowledge. He doesn't hide where he lives. But he also has a wrought iron gate around his house but it's great because it has wrought iron spider webs and spiders in the gate.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love Joe Hill's work. I got to interview Joe Hill once. A guy who, got to give him credit. He was like, I want to go into the exact same genre. He's like Brandon Cronenberg, except that Brandon Cronenberg decided not to take his dad's last name and publish a couple movies, like just on the basis of like how good the work was and hope for the best, not like trying to cash in on the dad's name. I love Joe Hill's books, and I think that like his dad and him share an interesting thing where they'll pepper details about each other's worlds into their own fiction. And actually that happens in the Tommyknockers, not with Joe's work, but they drive out of their little town and pass Derry, Maine, and one of the like transforming creatures looks down in the gutter at one point while driving past and sees what he thinks is a clown waving to him from the gutter. And you're like, from the thing, like long before versus was a thing. This was like a thing that Stephen King was doing.
Well, I also like, because Pennywise is this cosmic being, I like the idea that he and the Tommyknockers may have crossed paths in the past.
Yes.
Or something.
Oh my God. Or like the way that Dolores Claiborne and what's the other? Oh, and something game, Gerald's Game, are interlocked stories. At one point, they both intersect with the eclipse, and they're able to see each other from like down the well. Like they look down the well simultaneously, and they are able to like see each other and be connected in this cosmic way. I don't know. Before there was like big shared universes in MCU that I was knowing about, like on the cinematic scale, I feel like Stephen King had his finger on the pulse of that.
And he wasn't overthinking it. That's the thing.
No, he's like, that clown knows that alien.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you know what one I say is like the one, and we can start wrapping it up here. We will, I'm sure, talk about Stephen King a lot more over the course of this series. So thank you guys for sticking around. But I will say the one that I think should be done next is The Regulators and Desperation. Those two companion books, which are the same antagonist and the same town, and it's similar characters. Like some of the characters are the same, but they take place in, I think, alternative realities. So in one of them, the cop has been taken over by this entity, and he's like, he's killed everyone in town, and he's sort of dragging people out from the highway, arresting them as a highway cop, and bringing them back to the town, and like, making them sort of run this madcap escape room that's like town size. And the other one, he's the good guy who's like trying to deal with this mitigating force that's coming in from over the hills. But it's the same group of characters, and one's written by Brock. I mean, he wrote under the pen name of Bachman, right?
Richard Bachman.
Yeah. So one of them he wrote under the pen name. It's just this weird, like, dueling universe thing that I found really interesting, and I always thought would make for a great adaptation. Like, that would be such a cool thing. You get the same actors and get someone who has real range to play like the cop in the good world and the bad world. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, we've been going through a big Stephen King renaissance over the past, 5 or so years. And the thing I love about his books is, he himself admits that certain things about his writing from previous decades is outdated. Yeah. And those are the kind of works that lend themselves to adaptation the most, because we can improve upon them. And I think, you're seeing more and more of that. Even though I have nitpicks about the It movies from Muschietti, I am glad about some of the things they left out.
The child orgy scene. You don't have to say it. I will. The child orgy scene.
Not great. But Garth is right on point. The thing that's really, really cool about the Castle Rock series is it amalgamates Kingisms really, really beautifully.
Yeah, I didn't watch season 2, but season 1 did it very well. I reviewed it for the AV Club. It was pretty well done.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to watch season 2 as well, but I like most of what I saw of Castle Rock. And what's cool is I've spent a lot of time in Orange, Massachusetts for work where they shot that. Of course, it's supposed to be Maine, but Orange, Massachusetts, whenever they're shooting Castle Rock, it's just really cool when you drive through that town. They have things set up. They're like cordoning off certain parts of the town. And I was working with a brewery in that town at the time, and they told me about like everyone coming to their brewery at night for drinks and stuff and talking about the show. And they said Stephen King never came by, but a lot of the actors and crew did. And it was always fun when they were in town.
Sissy Spacek killed in that show. There was one episode of that show.
And Scott Glenn. Scott Glenn was great too.
Scott Glenn was great. There was one episode in particular where she's, they kind of did it in Bly manner this season, but she's like tripping through time. She's kind of doing a Slaughterhouse 5, like Sissy Spacek's character is like just unstuck in time. And it's such a magnificent episode. And it makes all these allusions to a larger universe. I mean, the reveal at the end of first season of Castle Rock was like brilliant and really on point, especially like considering what we've been talking about with like the King multiverse. Like the idea that somebody's one way and then someone's another way. And it's not like one's good and one's evil. It's just one's been put in different situations. And there's multiple like ways that some situation has turned out. I don't know. It's like almost like he created the MCU.
Again, guys, Loki is great, and I'm not saying it ripped off anything. I'm saying it could have just been inspired by a few things, and those things were Stephen King.
Right, because I feel like the comic book of Marvel, like the comic books of Marvel that I've read, like the one that I read, House of M for WandaVision, they do multiverses, but the multiverses are done very differently than they were done in Loki, and I feel like then they're being done in like Stephen King stuff, which is like a kind of multiverse that is not judgmental. It's not like Bizarro World where like one's the evil version of you. It's just sort of like a neutral multiverse, if I can put it that way.
Right. God, I have so much more to say about Stephen King, and I think we will.
We're going to, but we're almost at the 2-hour mark here, Adam. So I think we should start wrapping.
What?
Up. Yeah, we're at the 2
It's not 10. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm on the East Coast. Sorry.
Gotcha. No, it's 9 p.m. Almost here, and I don't want to keep you that long, and I want to keep people on the hook for next time that we do one of these.
Oh yeah,
because I've had a really good time. I hope you have too.
Yes, I have. I a very good time. Hopefully I didn't come on too strong to the audience with my visual aids here.
Adam, I think that's what people's going to love about it. Like, I'm going to watch on the Reddit thread, not even your AMA, just another Reddit thread's going to pop up being like, did you know Adam Collins owns like a physical copy of the Tommyknockers or like the Tornado? He's got the receipt still.
I didn't realize I have the receipt. I can never throw that away now.
Someone's asked, okay, let's read this as the last thing. Mistake says, I can think of one more film that uses the same effect. Can anyone think of another one? Mine's from the 90s and a very well-known slapstick comedy. Oh, he's saying, sorry, this was the previous comment. Quick tangent before we go. Vertigo, Jaws, and Fellowship of the Ring use the dolly zoom effect where the shot zooms in on the foreground while zooming in out of the background. I think you're thinking of Evil Dead, right? Sorry. It's Army of Darkness, sorry. Right? Like, if you're talking about the dolly zoom, that was a big Sam Raimi thing. That's not slapstick comedy. What do you think? Like a dolly zoom? I know exactly what you're talking about it for an effect. I just can't.
I would be spending a lot of dead air thinking about it, so I don't want to do that.
I'm thinking it's a Sam Raimi film, although I'm not sure if I would call it a slapstick comedy. But you tell us, Mistakes.
Dunk on us. We'll give you this one.
Yeah, you got us. Thank God there'll never be a Schmoedown question of cinematography. In what film uses a close-up dolly? So Garth's saying, an Eels band leader, Mark Oliver Everett. I love the Eels. Father first came up with multiple worlds theory, and there's a documentary about his dad. I mean, he's the first person to come up with multiple worlds theory. How are you proving that? How are you going to prove you came up with the idea of a multiverse? Mine's The Mask. Okay, where first shot, where Carrie first seems Diaz. That's right. There's that hard zoom. Good knowledge, guys. Good info trivia. Adam, where can people find you?
Well, you got my handle down there. Twitter and Letterboxd are my primary social media presences. I don't do much outside of that. I technically have an Instagram, but I'm not very fond of that particular platform. Nothing against people who like it. It's not for me. But I like Twitter and I like Letterboxd. So check me out on there. And I'm going to be on the show at least twice a month.
Yes.
And I'm on the Reddit AMA through tomorrow. If you or anyone else want to ask questions, I'll be there. And sometime in August, keep an eye out. I'm going to play JTE. That's my first match back to a title shot. If I win that one and win my next match after that, I get a shot at the title in New York. So fingers crossed.
Now, it's scary because if Marisol wins against Kevin Smith, and then you guys are going to be kind of almost like in contention to play each other. Are you worried about that at all?
No, that's our goal. I mean, if she beats Kevin and she wins the title and I win my next two matches, then we play each other in New York.
Oh my God.
And if Chance win, so it's me and JTE and Chance and Snyder, and then the winner of those plays, and then the winner of that plays the winner of Marisol, Kevin, Erwin, Dan. No offense to Chance, I prefer it's me getting the title shot, but silver lining is, of Chance getting the title shot wouldn't be too horrible either, since it's in the family. So we'll see what happens. But JT is first. I gotta take care of business with JT, and I am so excited for that match.
Yeah, he's a slippery one. I started this season being like, JT is like, he's been out of the game, whatever. He pronounces stuff wrong.
I've never underestimated JT. I have never done it as a fan. I'm certainly not doing it as a competitor. I am preparing for Dan Murrell again for this match. I'm taking it very seriously.
I want to add one last thing before I give my sign off, which is I didn't know that you were a fan of Schmoedown, Adam, but not until I was reading. I like to go back and read the comments of all my old matches because who doesn't? Like obsessively. And I noticed that one of my things, I think one of my early games with Tom, like there were a bunch of people being like, she's weird. I'm not sure if we're on board. People were on the fence about me. And then it's just Adam Collins. He's like, I actually like what you're doing. I think she'd be a good manager. And I was like, hey, it's you.
I was there. I was always there. I was always around. I just wasn't loud.
Yeah. I was very dead parents. Like you're just always there, but we don't.
I was at the live events in New York, and I was occasionally popping up in the Facebook group, but I really kept to myself and never really thought about getting a chance at it. But now that I'm here, I'm just trying to appreciate what I've got. That
terrifies me about the fandom of Schmoedown in the best way possible. That terrifies. If you were just a random person who were like, I probably wouldn't be good at this, and then look at you. What hope do the rest of us have? But
to be fair, I thought I would be okay. I didn't think I would face Dan Murrell, and that's still something I'm adjusting to. But honestly, Drew, you and so many competitors before me, you're the ones who got me into this in the first place. So thank you.
Oh, Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, look, I didn't know what this was. I certainly didn't have the respect for the game that I have now, and I kind of want to go back and like change my attitude a little bit. But hey, it all worked out in the end.
Absolutely.
You can find me. Yeah, I'm beloved. What am I going to do different? This is the best variant of myself. Like this is the one that's winning. So you can find me at VideoDrew. It's just one word across all social platforms. I'm on Patreon. Hit me up there. I'm on Letterboxd. Although I feel like Adam's like the king of Letterboxd. I like went on your Letterboxd today, like low key, just low key, like not like Loki.
I know.
And just to find like what movies you were like into that we could possibly put in that opening credit sequence. But yeah, that's like, I feel like there's an art to Letterboxd, like a true art. There's a Twitter account that like literally finds good reviews or like weird reviews, and that's what I'm trying to do is performative Letterboxd. So I'm over there. I'm on Instagram, all the socials. I'm also like on eBay and Mercari and all those selling sites because I sell Pokemon. And then yeah, I do shows almost every day. Tomorrow night I have Mike Mitchell from Doughboys and the Tomorrow War coming on live in the dark. So check that out at 8 p.m. PT. Yeah, old friend of mine. So I'm just ramping up.
Tell him hey. Tell him.
Yeah, I will tell him hey. I think he's gonna come over. Possibly. We're gonna see.
Okay.
But thank you so much for joining me, Adam. This has been really fun. I don't have an exit like sequence for this yet, but I will. So I'm just gonna play, if it's okay with you, the exit credits for the VideoChronic quizzes, and it won't have your name, but whatever it says NerdChronic, just imagine it says Adam Collins.
We'll get him next time. I'm not worried about it.
Sweet. Okay. See you guys later.
Thank you so much.
Bye.